All right. Thank you for your stamina. But our last speaker before the keynote is Phuong Trâm and Nguyen, who is now teaching here at UQAM, but also is from finishing or has finished. Has to finish at her PhD at the Bartlett School of Architecture.
Thank you for welcoming me here today. It has been a really long day, but really intense. It feels really like home with all those ideas and drawing. So when faced with the commission of documenting the bombing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, filmmaker Alain René couldn't imagine how the project could take shape. He felt that showing the atrocities of the event would obliterate its signification. He then appealed to Marguerite Duras to scriptwrite the film. In the synopsis, she wrote, and I quote, "Impossible to talk about Hiroshima. Nothing's given at Hiroshima. Every gesture, every word takes an aura of meaning that transcends its literal meaning." End of quote. Through her writing, the story of Hiroshima became a story about an affair between two anonymous lovers, only named she and him. She recounts their encounter, wavering in an eternal present, teetering between their fear of forgetting and remembering the past and the impossibility to imagine the future. The film opens with ashes falling onto two intertwined bodies, and then, under a shimmering veil, the ashes turn into stardust. The sequence dim and blend to let the glistening skin and sweat of the two bodies appear. In Duras' direction about the scene, she says, "As if drenched with ashes, rain, dew, or sweat, whichever is preferred, the main thing is that we get the feeling that this dew, this perspiration, has been deposited by the atomic mushroom as it moves away and evaporates." End of quote. Then the woman in the film tells the man that she has seen everything in Hiroshima. "I saw everything, everything. But what one can see in Hiroshima." On the location of the meaning of the story, the professor of art history and visual studies, Carol Maver, suggests that Hiroshima demands a new indexicality, which embraces the unimaginable, representing the immaterial. So within the theme of this conference on drawing and the present session on materiality, I will be presenting a project titled The Inventory of Shimmers. The Inventory of Shimmers is a printed folio on vellum and paper. The shimmer is impossible to locate in space. It involves a perpetual questioning of the substrate and the reflected. What is present? What is reaching the viewer? The Inventory of Shimmers inquire about the space where images appear and recollects a material search for register through photograph and text. So the folio tells a drawing process involving delineating, puncturing, projecting, delaminating, transferring surface and material. It searches for a form that kept shifting each time I thought I could grasp it. So the series of images question the nature of drawing, its register, and the space in between. So the project originates from researching the possibility of anamorphosis as a drawing technique to open up the space where perception happens. Anamorphic images are not formed by a perpendicular plane in front of the viewer, but a cut in a cone of vision. So it's precisely the construction of a transversal plane across the field of vision that allows the occupation of the space of appearances. So the deformed anamorphic image requires the viewer to search for a vantage point in space for the image's resolution. So by challenging the gaze, anamorphosis produces a state of persistent questioning of the place where images are seen and felt. The understanding of anamorphic images imply that each change in position, there's a shift in perception. So hereby, the Inventory of Shimmer aimed to suggest the state of shimmering as a space where one recognizes its ability to feel and be affected, and to affect and be affected in return. So the title Inventory of Shimmers borrowed from Roland Barthes' lecture between 1977 and 1978 on things that escape the binary opposition structure of thinking. So during the series of lecture, the author suggests the notion of the neutral as a third term, as an in-between state, able to encompass nuances. So for Barthes, the neutral is the opportunity to refuse the paradigm of binary opposition in the creation of meaning. For him, affect has the capacity to address what slipped through this dialogical net. Consequently, the affective turn can help to escape the dualistic thought between the material and material, we thought today, real, imagined. So the paper argues for the neutral to grasp the idea of the anamorphic condition situated between the image present and the recollection of another one, a place like always in perpetual becoming. So Barthes lectures are built as a series of fragments on the figure of the neutral. Rather than defining what affect is, he suggests an acute awareness to the shift of intensities and variation in the dialogue between what we feel and our capacity to affect. So for Barthes, the neutral is the shimmer, because that, and he says it's that those aspects, perhaps those meaning, is subtly modified according to the angle of the subject's gaze. And throughout the lecture, he uses like a range of vocabulary alluding to the flickering of light, moving in and out of light, such as glimmering, twinkling, shimmering. And then for him, it's this rapid changeability of affective moment that turns them into shimmers. So the condition of the neutral does not express indifference or disengagement, but rather an extreme consciousness in those affective moments. So the inventory, in a way, is a repository of nuances that states that question our relation with space, movement, and perception. Delineating the anamorphic and inquiry into the nature of the anamorphic condition led me to reflect on the ephemerality of the surface on which images appear. So through the anamorphic transformation, images depth isn't receding like within the picture plane, but propose to experience its distance within the viewer space. So the image contained in the full, I can put it over here. The image contained in the folio we're taking from a surface of a table based on the model of an optical table. Sorry. So these constructions are used mainly in physics and aim to study the behavior of light and space for the development of optical instruments such as laser or microscopes. But in the present research, the table becomes a stage where I use light to project the images, allowing for the expansion of the pictorial in space to explore images' depth. So the layout of the table originates from the configuration of an anamorphic mural painting by Emmanuel Magnan in the convent of Santa Trinita de' Monti in Rome. And the configuration of the hallway first suggests to the viewer an image of Saint Francis de Paula, the founder of the Minim. But this first understanding is slowly shattered as the observer walks along the corridor. So gradually another narrative appears, that of the landscape, where Saint Francis de Paula miracle happened, such as like when he was crossing the Strait of Messina on his tunic, leaded by the light of God. And this? Je sais pas comment l'utiliser. Ah, here. That's it. So the location of the apparition of the saint and the landscape present in the corridor happen on two different type of register, two different surface. By the movement across the corridor, the displacement of meaning emphasize the image's material and question the surface on which they appear. The experiment with the table took place in a photo studio at the Bartlett Temporary House on Hampstead Road, London, in the darkness of the studio. The light was simultaneously the protagonist and the subject of fascination. The research about light and vision brought forth the condition of perception, where light acts as both the metaphor of vision by its projection in space and the matter allowing for the phenomena to happen. So on the table, light projects the figure of the saints in space. Its projection illuminates the room and reactivates the image in the present, while the anamorphic transformation proposes a diagonal cut in the cone of vision and a movement across the space to recover the hidden meaning. The actual projection proposed to activate the movement embedded within the pictorial. The shift in the subject of transformation aimed to engage with another understanding of the image speciality. While part of the folio images attempt to capture the gaze encounter with light, the other part recount the search for a register for this new dimension of the image. So following those luminous fragment of image in space, the gaze pursues route towards something that's not yet known. And the inventory, in a way, is a collection of those images which, like glimpses, sketching light fragments, and they're like clue leading the reader back into the same pursuit. In a collection of short aphorisms titled Aperçu, the philosopher and art historian Georges Didier Huberman inquire into the dimension of time and space in images. And it's written in fragment, and the text offers the reader the sensation of what remains for the onlooker when a glimpse captivates, enchant, and then dissolve in an instant. So like traces of what's seen, his pieces evoke vision that persists when one closes their eyes. So recollecting and retelling those images became a path that led the author back to them again. So for Didier Huberman, he displays the interest from what we are looking at to how we look for it as a writing strategy. So in the same manner, the loose sheet of the Inventory of Shimmers don't have like a specific order and refer to Barthes's idea of recollection of different nuances, gradation of reality, and in the encounter of effect that can affect. So the pages are meant to be manipulating, following intuition to reform the experience of the pictorial and the gesture of image making. The succession of images allow the viewer to be with and play with the space where vision happens. So the photograph and text in the folio doesn't aim to represent the different experiment with the table, but bring the designer's position back to the reader. So the juxtaposition of image and word remain elusive. There's an uncertainty in how the arrangement of the page allude to the numerous days spent in the studio's darkness and experimenting with different configuration of image, projection on the table. Allusion and illusion belong to the same Latin roots, ludere, to play, while allusion refer to the idea of indirect reference to something, the indirect pushed further into illusion, deceive perception, like anamorphosis, fascination with the displacement of the viewpoint and the hidden. An illusion is a perception of something that exists in its manner to provoke misinterpretation. Its pattern creates a sensation that something can exist in certain condition, and according to the definition given by the dictionary, there's even a possibility of reversing the reality distortion. So anamorphic image depends on the deception of vision. Moreover, the drawing technique don't refer to space, but allude to memory and the embedded movement. Illusion and allusion play with the location of image. So to perceive, so those are all images from the inventory, but I have like a mini sample here if you want to look after. So to perceive involved to be moved by something outside. The series describe like the different movement, gesture, taking place in space and time. The technique of delineating, puncturing, projecting, delaminating, transferring surface and matter are inspired by early anamorphic technique. There's one method described in Daniel Barbaro in his treatises de la Práctica de la Perspectiva, dating from 1568, recalling the use of light from the sun or lantern directed through the holes of a piece of paper and then towards the board. So the light then delineate the contour of the drawing on the board, and by angling the latter, it would deform the original image. The technique of the pierced paper isn't like something new. It was quite familiar in the 14th and 15th century to delineate fresco, like those cartoons, to transfer the drawing into fresh plaster. On the wall, the painter would be pouncing charcoal through the holes. So those different processes become a search for form that moved me. So to transform the image was a way for me to preserve it. Barthes described the neutral as a state that is both passive and active, because the shimmering, and I quote, the shimmering feel of the body, insofar as it changes, goes through changes. So to perceive, so to perceive is also to select what we bring into focus. The surface of the paper, sometimes opaque, sometimes translucent, underline the relation between the projected and the imprint. The translucent images are made to be seen through light. In rearranging the page, there's a change in the sensation where images register. The image don't belong only to one surface specifically, but constructed with both sides. Reassembling the translucent pages and the darker one, pressing one page against the other, looking at the pages across a source of light. Through those different gestures, the reader articulates the space between images. So by considering the relation between those moments, two spaces of object, the neutral in ways an operation of spacing, of distancing, but more in the projection of space. So to conclude, at moment, like the space between the perceive and the sensation of the imprint in our minds, so close we can hold it in our hand, and sometimes it's so distant that it disappears in the depth of the darker pages. The shift of distance alludes to the image possible speciality beyond its surface. What can we encounter when the space of the image opens up? In the gesture of gathering images and word, the inventory slowly builds a sense of what happened in the studio and how to maintain that sensation of encounter between light and vision. Thank you. Right? Oh, okay.
This is prefaced by an end of the day reflection by Carole. Can a drawing be a space of appearance? Can we enter a drawing, something that was suggested earlier by Rit, as we would of a situation? By chance, serendipity, some drawings like film grasp us off guard and pull us in their world. What allows this? Light, movement? How can a drawing shimmer? I guess these are all impossible questions to answer, but they are nice to think about. I think you choose one of the questions and you...
So when does it shimmer? I think it's really when you hold it. It has to be, you have to manipulate, separate, like it's a process of image making. For me, like those goes with also a film, like thinking about how those images work together, how they are in space, in time, and rearranging them. I think it's really in movement, trying to find how they can recompose that somehow fiction of presence when I was in that studio working with the model. Does it make sense?
Yeah. To us, if Carol writes a comment, we'll. There's an oh.
Sorry, it's really just a kind of contextualizing comment, and I always think it's interesting in Bart's lectures in Neutral when he relates the shimmer to the exterior of Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights. So the interior is painted with a kind of intense color and intense, figural presence. The outside is painted in greys, and he talks about this as the kind of moment of creation, the beginning of the onset of difference, before things become differentiated from one another. And so it's kind of the shimmer in this is the onset of difference, as he calls it, the minimal condition of differentiation between things, just at the point of appearance, the point of emergence, the point of differentiation. I think that's interesting. I mean, when you talk about film as well, it reminds me of a very sort of interesting essay on film that Virginia Woolf wrote of one of her sort of first experiences of seeing film, where she writes about not what's depicted on the screen, but like small hair that becomes caught on the edge of the projector and fluctuates as the film runs. And for her, this is the possibility of the medium more than she sort of disavows, she dispenses with the staging and the narrative of the film itself, which she sees as just a kind of reproduction of what one might see in theatre. But this oscillation, this flickering of this small piece of material that's caught within the apparatus of the projector becomes something like the shimmer,
like a shimmer.
I think, in a Barthian sense, but it reveals the condition of the medium as well, or somehow the opportunity, the possibilities of the medium. So it's that forward-directedness, that proleptic sense of possibility before, in Barthian terms, before it gets resolved into the paradigm, into the kind of condition of opposition.
Oh, thank you. I will look into that.
We have one last comment or question. Okay. Thank you very much, Phuong Trâm.
Merci.